Calaroga Shark Media.
From New York, where, is this copy correct? A Mexican Navy pirate ship crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge. This is Ballot.
Boy, in a year of I can't believe I am saying this news story's Mexican Navy pirate ship sure is a new one. Let's hit this. Wait, let's not hit anything. Look out! A Mexican naval ship crashed into the Brooklyn Bridge like it was parallel parking in a tight spot in Manhattan. 2 people were killed and 19 injured when the armed Cuauhtémoc went full Titanic against one of New York's most famous landmarks. The ship's captain lost control after what officials are calling a mechanical failure. You know, the kind of mechanical failure where a 150-foot tall sailing vessel somehow drifts directly into a bridge that's been there since 1883. The mayor, Eric Adams, says the ship lost power before the crash. I'm no naval expert, but I think that's why sailing ships have those giant white flappy things called sails. They're this revolutionary technology from roughly 5,000 years ago that lets boats move without engines. Maybe someone should have mentioned that to the captain. Before crashing, the Cuauhtémoc was apparently quite the spectacle, all lit up with string lights and Mexican flags, its masts towering over the river. People were admiring it right up until it became clear that this wasn't going to end well, at which point they fled the walkway. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum called it an unfortunate accident. Meanwhile, New York City Council member Lincoln Ressler had a slightly different take, calling it exceptionally reckless and negligent. It's that classic diplomatic difference between oopsie-daisy and what the hell were you thinking? Miraculously, the Brooklyn Bridge didn't suffer significant damage and reopened the same night. The top of the ship's main mast and mizzen mast, however, were completely destroyed. The mizzen mast is the one at the rear of the vessel. I looked that up because I'm not some kind of sailing nerd who just knows what a mizzen mast is off the top of my head. The Mexican ambassador to the United States said, "The ship is a goodwill vessel that has been on the waters for more than 20 years, sharing Mexican culture." I'm not sure crashing into American infrastructure is the best way to share culture, but it certainly made an impression. The ship was apparently on its way to Iceland, which means its navigation was off by approximately the entire Atlantic Ocean. Maybe they should have just called an Uber. The National Transportation Safety Board is investigating, which means in about 2 years we'll get a 300-page report explaining that ships shouldn't hit bridges. Meanwhile, we'll keep a very close eye on Pope Leo today to make sure he can get through the day without dying, now that he took up the curse of JD Vance. JD Vance headed back to the Vatican this weekend. This time, it's for Pope Leo XIV's inauguration mass. You know what the White House notice said? Pope Leo XIV is the first American pope. Vice President Vance is the first Catholic convert to serve as vice president. That's like the world's most boring fun fact. It's what you'd say if you were trying to make Catholicism sound like a LinkedIn profile. So Vance is showing up to meet the first American pope just 4 Sundays after awkwardly shaking hands with the previous pope, who had basically called his theology garbage as he last acted on earth. And now Vance is greeting a new pope who apparently used to trash him on social media. Nothing says fresh start like meeting someone who deleted their tweets about you. This new pope, though, conservative Catholics don't really know him personally. It's that classic situation where your friend sets you up on a blind date and says, "You'll love them, they also hate immigration." And then you show up and they're actually pretty normal. The Pope has this coat of arms with a message about unity, which is nice. He also invited the leader of Opus Dei for a meeting. If you don't know what Opus Dei is, it's basically a Catholic group that makes regular Catholics look like they're not trying hard enough. Pope Leo and Vance apparently both love St. Augustine. Vance chose Augustine as his patron when he converted to Catholicism. He was inspired by Augustine's 5th century treatise, City of God. Who wasn't? I remember in college I couldn't put it down. I was like, oh no, just one more chapter about challenging Rome's ruling class, and then I'll go to sleep.
What happens when one of the most powerful men in music is accused of some of the most serious crimes imaginable? Check out the new podcast, Did He Do It? Following the federal sex crimes trial of Sean Diddy Combs, coming to you straight from New York City. Every day I'll take you inside the courtroom where prosecutors say Combs ran a criminal enterprise of sex trafficking, coercion, and abuse. Using his fame, fortune, and influence to silence victims and control lives, we'll cover the big stories and the small moments that can shift the verdict. The trial has begun. The questions are piling up, and every day we'll be asking the same thing. Did he do it? Follow now wherever you get your podcasts.
Tired of doom scrolling? Want news that won't make you want to live in a bunker? Check out 5 Good News Stories, where they find the silver lining in a world that's usually lined with something much less pleasant. The gang at 5 Good News Stories dig through the headlines to find 5 stories that prove humanity hasn't completely lost its mind. It's pretty much the opposite of this show. From scientific breakthroughs nobody's talking about to random acts of kindness that restore your faith in humanity, all delivered with the cutting wit you deserve. 5 Good News Stories, because sometimes the news doesn't have to suck. Subscribe to 5 Good News Stories wherever you get your podcasts. Ladies and gentlemen, New Jersey is experiencing biblical levels of transportation chaos. The state that gave us Bruce Springsteen, Chris Christie, and those weird jug handles at intersections is now delivering a modern-day plague worthy of the book of Exodus. First up, we've got sinkholes on Interstate 80. Not just one sinkhole, 4 sinkholes on the same stretch of highway. It turns out that below Jersey's roads are abandoned mine shafts and tunnels, which is perfect because nothing says safe infrastructure like building highways over giant underground holes. The Department of Transportation says heavy rains have delayed repairs. So, to recap, they built a major interstate over abandoned mines, and now they're surprised that water is making the ground collapse. That's like being shocked that your boat sank after you drilled holes in it. All lanes won't reopen until late June, meaning motorists get to spend more time in what they're calling the state's scenic highlands. I've been to those highlands. The most scenic thing there is the Exxon sign that tells you gas is 10 cents cheaper than in New York. Then there's Newark Liberty International Airport, which has had one of its 3 runways closed for construction. On Monday, they had only 3 air traffic controllers working, about a dozen fewer than needed. So planes couldn't even take off from other airports to go to Newark. Think about that. They didn't have enough people to safely land the planes, so their solution was, let's just keep everyone where they are. It's the aviation equivalent of saying, I'm not ready for this relationship, so don't even text me. And finally, we have New Jersey Transit, where commuters wake up each morning and ask themselves, how will the train disappoint me today? Now, with locomotive engineers on strike for the first time since 1983, it's becoming a really ugly spring. But as one commuter put it, if you Jersey, you Jersey. This means not being surprised when the airport announces you might have been exposed to measles. It means laughing when New Jersey Transit proudly announces they fixed an elevator at a station where no trains are running. That's like telling someone their car's cup holder works great while the engine is on fire. Speaking of New Jersey, Bruce Springsteen and Donald Trump are locked in a battle of words that makes your average Twitter fight look like a tea party at Buckingham Palace. Springsteen continued his anti-Trump tour commentary in Manchester, England on Saturday night, refusing to back down after our president called him a dried-out prune of a rocker. At his Manchester show, Springsteen delivered a 3-minute speech that was about as subtle as his denim collection. Things are happening right now that are altering the very nature of our country's democracy, the boss declared, clearly referring to the fact that nobody's forcing Taylor Swift to release another album. Springsteen went on to say, in my home, they're persecuting people for their right to free speech. Which is rich, coming from a guy who charges $900 for concert tickets. The only thing being persecuted is my wallet when I try to see him live. The New Jersey rocker continued, in America, the richest men are taking satisfaction in abandoning the world's poorest children. I assume he meant everyone who paid for his Broadway show tickets. Springsteen also claimed, they are removing residents off American streets without due process of law and deploying them to foreign detention centers as prisoners. Unlike his concerts, where people voluntarily pay to be trapped in a stadium for 4 hours while he plays Thunder Road for the 27 millionth time. Trump, never one to take criticism lying down or sitting, standing, or in any position whatsoever, fired back on Truth Social with his trademark restraint. He called Springsteen highly overrated, dumb as a rock, and my personal favorite, a dried-out prune of a rocker. His skin is all atrophied. I'm pretty sure Trump got his dermatology degree from the same place he got his political science degree. Trump added that he never liked his music, which is shocking since I always assumed Born to Run was about escaping accountability. The president also wrote that Springsteen is just a pushy, obnoxious jerk, employing his signature random capitalization technique that makes his posts look like ransom notes written by a sugar-crazed third grader. He finished by saying Springsteen should keep his mouth shut until he gets back into the country, which is exactly how international diplomacy works. You can't criticize America while abroad. It's in the Constitution, right next to the part about presidents being allowed to tweet at 3 in the morning. Springsteen did end his speech on an optimistic note, quoting James Baldwin. In this world, there isn't as much humanity as one would like, but there's enough. Although after reading Trump's Truth Social posts, I'm starting to think Baldwin was being a bit generous. The boss is currently on his Land of Hopes and Dreams tour across Europe, while Trump continues his own tour called Land of Posts and Screams. And you know what? With that, the AI has finally written a good joke.